Hey friends, Jonathan here, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about sciatic pain. Now, I made a post on Facebook the other day asking if anyone ever experienced this. I got a long list of people who said, yeah, that in one capacity or another that they've experienced this. Some of them still have it coming and going, some of them still have it more permanently. Some people, it came and it went. Maybe they did some yoga or they followed some stuff and they helped to get rid of it. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to share with you guys an 8-step protocol that I use to try to really relieve and even prevent. So even if you don't have it, you might still want to follow this protocol to prevent any kind of sciatic pain. Now, I will preface all this by saying I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not giving you medical advice here. But what I am doing is I'm going to share with you again, this is what I've done. I used to not really have sciatic pain, but I had SI joint pain. I know other people that have pain in that same kind of area. And this is the protocol that I've used. And many of them, it has helped them a lot. And many of them have been relieved. Me personally, I had that SI joint pain in that same kind of area. I've done these kind of protocols and it's just gone. So haven't had to think about it since I started doing this. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. Again, there's many reasons you could have sciatic pain, so this won't necessarily fix all of those things, but it's still worth a shot. And like I said, even if it doesn't help your pain, or even if you don't have that particular pain, all these techniques, all this stuff that I'm going to show you is going to be really helpful. So basically what this is all going to rely around is releasing certain areas that are over tight. We have certain areas in our body that from sitting, from stress, from other repetitive things we've done, from all kinds of reasons, that fascia we've talked about before in other videos gets tightened up in these areas. The problem is that not only does this restrict those areas, but it also restricts the function of other muscles. So if one side, let's say, just put it simply, one side gets too tight, not only does the other side get overstretched, but it becomes difficult for that side to even engage. So one of the specific muscles that we're really talking about, one of the things that really happens and that leads to sciatic pain and leads to really a lot of other problems, lower back and other stuff, is poor function of the glute max. So a lot of what we're going to be doing today is about getting good function and not just squeezing, but real functional engagement of the glute so that it can take pressure off of those other areas that they've tightened up essentially to try, because the glute's not working, so they just get more and more, they just take on more and more of that work. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get them a little bit off that job, put the glute back on the job, and that should really, first of all, help you to function and move better. And if you have that sciatic pain, there's a good chance that that'll help you out. So I'm just going to walk you guys through exactly what I want you to do. My suggestion is that you really just do this in the order that I say to do it, and give yourself the time to get through the first few steps before moving on to the next. So again, the first thing we got to do, if I want to get the glute functioning, if I want to get my body back in line, is I got to identify the areas that are tight, that are knotted in the fascia, and I got to break those things up. Because if those things are there, again, they're going to inhibit the function, they're going to inhibit your ability to actually engage that glute in the first place. So first thing we got to do, you guys know how much I love myofascial release, and the reason why is because it helps and it actually works. So I'm going to give you a brief description of what myofascial release is, and then I'll show you the 4 spots and how we're going to approach them. Myofascial release, you've all felt it. If you've ever had any kind of massage or even done it yourself, you come up here, for instance, in this upper trap, you rub around enough, probably not very much, right about there, I feel there's like a little hard, lumpy feeling. So it hurts a little to push on it. It feels like you have all this soft tissue and there's either like a cable or a ball or some kind of bump in there. All that we're doing, the technique that we're doing today, is basically just finding those tender spots where that fascia is bound up and we feel the tenderness and we feel that little bit of pain. And we're just holding on it in a kind of medium, not pushing too hard, not too little, but just holding on it at a medium pace and breathing. You're not trying to roll around. You don't need to try to massage it. None of that. You just got to identify the spots that I'm going to show you, find tender spots in those areas, and then sit on them. So what we're going to use, and what I highly recommend you get, is either a tennis ball. If you don't have one already, you should get one because they're very cheap and they can really help you quite a bit in all this stuff. I right here have a lacrosse ball. This is a little firmer because I've done a lot of this, and you might need to get something like that. But again, it's not about how hard you go, it's about getting that release. So pick the tool that's going to get you the right amount of pressure so that you can feel it, but you can also still breathe, relax, and actually let those tissues open. Now, that being said, I'll just show you, we have 4 areas that we're going to concentrate on that we want to release if we want to start to get the glute to function, if we want to also just take some pressure off of that sciatic nerve. So any of you that have ever felt sciatic pain, you already know that it basically comes down your butt and shoots down the leg this way. There's a little muscle here called the piriformis. There's also the glute medius and glute minimus. A lot of this tissue is involved in what we call external rotation. That is turning that hip open. So a lot of people that walk kind of duck-footed, they'll probably feel that pressure. Sometimes that also goes along with that sciatic pain. But even if you don't have that, there's a very good chance that all these what we call external rotators, these muscles that externally rotate, are, again, they're tight because the glute max is not doing its job, so they're having to take up that weight. So that's going to be, if you look at my shorts, chose these today because really it's just kind of not necessarily going all the way down this way, but this upper outer portion of the butt, right where it's all the black color on my shorts right here, that would be the external rotators that we're going to be looking at, and I'll show you how to get into those. The second spot is going to be a little bit more on the front. It's right here, kind of not up on, like, this is my hip bone. I'm going to come down a little bit, kind of on the 45-degree angle of the thigh, high up the thigh. Sometimes it's a little lower, a little higher, but this TFL that goes right here is a hip flexor that when it gets tight, it pulls the pelvis down, and it really gives you some trouble there too. The other hip flexor in the same vein that we're going to be working on is what we call the rectus femoris. This goes from that same hip bone, basically straight down the middle of the thigh. It's slightly off to the outer side of the thigh, but essentially just a straight line down the middle of the thigh to the kneecap from the hip bone. So that's the third one that we're going to be working on. The final one is going to be what we call the quadratus lumborum, or the QL, which is essentially just the love handle area, if you will, of your lower back out here. Again, all of these things, when the glute stops doing its job, when the glute max, I should say, stops doing its job properly, they tighten up. Of course, as they tighten up, the glute max loses ability to function properly. You can see where this goes. It starts to spiral, and then one day you're bending over to pick something up, and all of a sudden you get that shooting pain. Seems like it came out of nowhere, but it's really just been building. So what we're going to do is basically deconstruct that and then reconstruct it in a way that's going to be functional and that's going to save you from having all that trouble. So I showed you the 4 spots. Now I'm just going to real quick show you how to approach them. I'm not going to sit with you while you do them here because I just want to show you them. It's going to take time, you guys. The thing is, you're going to have to sit on some of these areas and really work through them, getting those releases for a long time for a lot of us, especially if you have a lot of issues there, which most of us do. So I'm just going to show you the way that we're going to get those 4 spots, and then we're going to move on, and I got some other stuff to show you too to carry that protocol on. So here we go. First one told you about are those external rotators. There's really one way, but kind of 2 ways that you can approach that. We're going to do it either way, just laying on your back, which is pretty cool because that's nice and comfortable. That's pretty easy. You can, for some people, and sometimes I do both ways really just to see what I can find. But sometimes it's just as simple as taking that ball, putting it next to that, right up next to, again, that upper outer portion of the butt, and then just kind of tilting into it. As you tilt into it, again, we're going to explore around. You might not have to explore that much until you find something that hurts. And I should say, I really want to clarify, it's the good kind of hurt. Now, we all know, again, you've had a massage or anything like that, if someone's rubbed your shoulders, there's that kind of hurt in your soft tissue. It feels good, like it feels like it's something that needs to release. So we don't want to feel like we're activating our sciatic nerve or anything like that. You want to be careful of anything that feels like tearing. But if you just feel that dull, kind of good massage pain, then all you want to do is just sit on that spot, breathe, and wait for it to actually release. You really want to give it the time, give it some breath, so that you actually feel it. Either physically you might feel it release, or the more likely thing is that you'll just feel that it doesn't hurt anymore. So you're basically just, simply put, you're finding the spots that give you that good pain, and you're sitting on them until they no longer give you the good pain. Sometimes it helps, and this one I said there was a second way, to kind of figure 4 that top leg, and then go in to that. That'll get you a little bit more access to the piriformis. Again, I've used both. Some days I feel like I feel it more here. Some days I feel like I feel it more with the foot down. Again, you just want to find any spots that you can in there and go ahead and work them out. Second thing I was talking about is that TFL. TFL or the tensor fascial latae runs, again, kind of like if you've ever had like a pair of jeans, it's kind of in that jean pocket area, right? Just not on the hip bone, but just below it, kind of on the 45-degree angle. This one, again, pretty simple. I'm going to get on my side like you see here. I'm going to put the ball kind of right in front of that area. I'm going to take the top leg over so that I can kind of just roll down. So I'm not quite on my belly, I'm not quite on my side. Again, kind of on the 45-degree angle there. Again, you kind of got to explore around. Some people I've done this with and they're like, I don't feel anything, I don't feel anything, and all of a sudden, bang, they hit that spot and it really lights up. So what I always say, especially if you're new to this, don't guess. Just look around until you find something that definitely gives you a nice, strong register of that good pain. If you have to guess, it might mean that you're close to a spot. Maybe you're kind of on the edge and you feel a little something. Move really slowly when you explore around, find the spot, and then again, you do want to relax as much as you can. So once you're on it, if you want to put a pillow or if you want to just rest here, as long as you stay on the spot, you want to get as comfortable and relaxed as you can, because again, you want to let the tissue open up, and that's not going to happen if you're freaking out. So again, just put it there, roll into it, sit there, breathe. Pretty simple. Now the third one that I was talking about, very similar kind of area, similar function of hip flexion, is that rectus femoris. So it comes straight from that hip bone, again, down onto the patella, onto the kneecap. This one is really simple. All you're going to do is lay on your belly and put the ball anywhere up and down the thigh. Some people it's going to be closer to the knee, closer to the hip. For me, I almost always find it in the middle of the thigh. It has to do with the ratio of your bones. We won't get into that. But really, it doesn't matter where it is on you. You're just exploring anywhere up and down the front of that thigh and that midline until you find, again, more tender spots, more of that good kind of massage pain. Once you find it, again, you just kind of sit on it. Especially here, you don't want to be rolling on and off. Your thigh's kind of round, so just once you locate that spot, just try to stay on it. Again, you can rest. The more you rest, the more you relax, the more chance that tissue has to relax anyway. If you feel it, but you still need to get deeper, like especially if you've been doing this for a couple weeks, you can start to bend that knee. And as you do, you'll immediately feel that that ball digs in a lot deeper, and you'll start to feel some deeper layers of that. But again, don't add that in. If your foot's down and you're already dying here, again, we don't want too much and we don't want too little for the pain register. You want just that right amount that you can feel it, but you can still breathe through it and you can still not totally freak out. So we got three, we got to get our fourth one. Our fourth one, again, is going to be in that, we call it the love handle area. It's this kind of like little fan-shapy thing called the quadratus lumborum, comes out through that outer lower back. This one ends up being tight in a lot of people. So again, very similar to the first one that we did. We're going to lie down, but now instead of putting it in the upper butt, you guessed it, I'm just going to put it in that lower back. And then again, I can kind of tilt, I can move around and explore until I find something in that lower outer back in that love handle area. Again, that just gives you that kind of good register of pain. And then once you find it, again, you're just sitting on it. The thing we don't want to do is move around too much. It's true that you can kind of lightly massage the spot. I find that for most people, it's just easier just to stay on it, breathe into it. And again, try to feel it relaxing. Try to let yourself relax as you're here. The more you can relax your nervous system, obviously, the more your body's going to relax. So with that, again, just real quick, wanted to show you how to approach those four spots. So again, you want to do those external rotators, you want to do the TFL, you want to do that rectus femoris, and then you want to do those muscles in your lower back that we call the quadratus lumborum. That's all we got for the ball. And I will say this, if you're new to this, if you've never done any of this, I recommend that you spend the vast majority of your time right now doing that. I wouldn't even necessarily recommend that you move on to a lot of the other steps until you've really done at least a decent job, at least done a couple weeks of working on those four spots. But that being said, once you're done with those four spots, we're then going to move on to something that I like to call active stretching. So these are going to be kind of stretches or kind of yoga poses, if you will, but we're not going to just sit in them. We're going to activate specific muscles as we stretch specific muscles. The idea being, again, that we're trying to bring that balance back. If I have tightness on one side, I have that kind of openness on the other. I don't just want to stretch that one and then leave two open ones. I want to try to bring that back into balance, the right amount of strength and openness on each side. So again, we said that at the very beginning, that the main thing that we're trying to do here is get that glute max in what we call a hip extension. That's pushing the hips forward, standing up straight. We want to get that glute max active. And we also said that one of the things that inhibits that is the tightness in those quads or in that rectus femoris. So really simple idea here. You can maybe start to see where I'm going with this. I'm going to lie down on my side. I'm going to bend my top knee. I'm going to grab that foot. And then I'm going to pull it in. So I'm getting, again, you've probably done this before. It's just a normal stretch for the quads, right? I'm just getting a little quad stretch. Now what I suggest that you do here, though, the thing that's going to make this different, is that you're only giving yourself about a medium stretch. So I can feel the front of my thigh stretching, but I'm not pulling as hard as I possibly can. It's getting to a medium. I feel it stretching. It's getting a chance to kind of deactivate a bit. And now at the same time, I'm trying to feel the glute on that same side. So I got my left foot in. I'm just going to really mindfully try to activate that left glute. And I say activate, not squeeze. You're not trying to squeeze. You're not doing a big butt squeeze here. You're trying to stretch that quad and at the same time bring mindful activation of that glute. If you're doing it correctly, you should start to feel some kind of, especially if you've done all that release work, you might start to feel some movement in those hip bones. You might start to feel your lower back decompressing. But again, just be really careful. You're just getting a medium stretch and a medium engagement. I'm not trying to squeeze my butt as hard as I can. And that we, of course, want to do on both sides. So make sure you do that on both sides. But again, always, I can't stress this enough. In all these practices, nothing is ever forced, but we do want to feel it. So never too little. You don't want to waste your time, but it's not more is better here. It is finding that right amount. So again, we stretched that, we got the glute active. We're basically going to do a similar kind of thing for the TFL, for the other hip flexors, in our low lunge. But we're also, again, so you guys probably, if you've done any yoga, which most of my people have, even if you haven't done yoga, you might have done this stretch where we're just going to bring, in this case, I'm bringing the left foot forward, kind of outside of that left hand so that I'm not being stuck on my thigh here. I like to bring it a little bit outside. I'm going to bring that back foot back and I'm going to sit that knee down. So you want to make sure you have a relatively long stride. If you get here, you're still flexed at the hip, so that's not really going to help us out. You want to get back enough. So now if you see here, now I have a nice straight line. So my hip is in what we call full extension, which is really important because that's what the glute max really does. So while I'm here, just being in this position, the hip flexors are already in stretch. Again, I'm in hip extension. So I don't need to try to, I'm not doing this stuff. You see people doing this, they're trying to stretch it more. Don't do that. Get to that stretch, straight line at the hip, and then sit here and mindfully try to activate that glute. Again, I'm not squeezing my butt as hard as I can. I'm not stretching my hip as hard as I can. I'm just getting to the middle, nice stretch, and then just feel that glute activating. Now for a lot of us, again, we have poor glute function. It really is just that we don't have a good ability to engage it. So you want to take some time here, take some breath, and really just be mindful. It might even help. A lot of times it helps to see it. Sometimes you can be next to a mirror and literally look at your butt and try to see if you can get it to engage here. But again, we want to make sure that we're not pushing the hips down with it. It's more almost like you're trying to feel your glute slide down the back of your thigh, because that's again what's going to get those hip extension fibers. So again, it's just a standard low lunge, but making that little change where we're, instead of us trying to jam as much stretch as we can, we're finding the middle and then stretching and engaging. So that again, the tight stuff opens, the stuff that is dormant starts to wake up. So those are our 2 assisted stretches. Last 2 things that we're going to do. We said it's an 8-part thing. We've got 4 releases. We've got 2 assisted stretches. Last thing that we're going to do here is our 2 what we call corrective exercises. And the first one of these, again, is going to be something that most of you are familiar with. Even if you haven't done yoga, you've probably done some of these somewhere. It's what we call a glute bridge. Again, not done. We're not doing this to try to build your booty up. We're not trying to do a really, really hard anything. We're just trying to get mindful activation. This is all about getting your mind reconnected to those glutes so that they're active and doing their job. So I want to make sure, first of all, that my feet are about hips distance apart and that my toes point straight ahead. when I come down onto my back, I want to make sure that my feet are either under my knees or maybe slightly in front of my knees. Now you can leave your whole foot down. Some people, myself, I like to kind of lift everything but the back edge of the heels. It just helps me to feel it, but you can leave them down or up, whatever suits you. Again, when we lift into our bridge, we're not trying to see how high we go. If I go this high, I'm actually just using my lumbar. This isn't even using my glutes that much. So instead of thinking about how high I can get my hips, just be here and try to feel the glutes engage. And again, when I say engage, it's not a squeeze, but what we're thinking about is almost, you're thinking about a downward engagement. Again, kind of like your butt cheeks are trying to slide down the back of your thighs. If you get this right, you'll feel not only the glutes engaging in that downward line, but you'll also will feel your lumbar, your lower back, your tailbone lengthening out. This is also really important, and part of the problem is that we get our lumbar compressing because we sit and we compress that lumbar. And so when the glutes activate in that extension, not only are you going to help your sciatic, but you're also, part of that whole thing is going to be opening that lower spine. So if you get good glute function in this bridge position, you will know that you're getting it right, we should say, when you start to feel almost like a slinky-like extending of the lower spine here. So I feel my glutes sliding down the back of my legs. I might feel even my abdominals kind of hollow in a little bit as the glutes activate and as the lumbar and the lower spine get longer. So that's just kind of, you want to focus on feeling that glute engagement from the top to the bottom. But if you start to feel that spine lengthen out, decompress, you might even get a few nice little pops there. That's just giving you an indication that you're really on the right track. That's 7 steps. We got one more step to do. This one's the most dynamic. This is where we start to really, we've taken all this time to deactivate this other stuff, to reactivate the glute, really get some good function there, and now we're going to bring it into actual good, connected, functional biomechanics. So the main function, the main thing that a human body is really designed for is walking and running. So our body has a lot of connections that run between the muscles, what we call fascial trains, that actually facilitate, that are built essentially around the action of running. So we'll have connections, for instance, from that pec down through the obliques to the inner thigh, and we have connections on the backside from the lat to the glute. So we want to take advantage of those. For instance, one is that this lat on this left side and this glute on this right side like to connect, because when I'm running and I'm doing this, you can see that I'm kind of activating this lat and this glute is back in extension. So the reason I bring that up is because the exercise, the last thing we're going to do is what we call a running man squat. And I use the word squat because we don't want to be in a lunge. We're not stepping way back. We're taking a very short walking step to right about here. Essentially, I want it to be short enough because I don't want to put any weight on that back foot. Very, very little. That's just there to make sure you can maintain balance. All the weight is really on the heel of the front foot. And then, even if you can't squat that low, this will still work, but you can go as low as you want. It's not really about that though. We're going to squat down. We're going to get into that running position. So as I have my left foot forward, I'm going to bring my right arm forward. You also notice that I don't just move the arms like this. I'm actually rotating my ribs a bit into it. So now I'm wading into that front heel. What I'm going to start to do is push into the very back edge of the front heel until you start to feel this happen. You'll see that my lower back stops compressing. All I'm doing is pressing into this heel. You'll see that the hip pulls into place, and you'll also notice the core draws in. Now, from here, I'm really feeling that glute, that hamstring. I got my little rotation, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to pull through the back edge of that heel, drive the hip forward, switch the arms, and then I'm going to feel this left glute, this right lat activate. And then I'm going to come back in, get back in my running position, push into the very back edge of that heel, and now I'm pulling back from that heel. As I drive forward, I switch arms, and I get that glute firing. And again, this is not about doing squats. It's not about doing lunges. It's not even about building up the strength of your butt. You can do all that later if you can actually get your glute to work first. So do this mindfully. It doesn't matter if you do 20 of them or if you do 5 of them. What matters is that you're actually hitting the right thing. You're actually getting the right thing. So when you come down, take a moment here. Feel the rotation. Make sure we're not hunching. lift the ribs, straight spine, slight rotation, pull from the heel, wait here until you actually feel the glutes start to build tension, what we call potentiate, and then slowly, mindfully, feeling that glute, try, like we said in the last one, trying to slide down your thigh as you come up. Now you notice I come straight and tall. Do not do this. When we talk about hip extension, this is your back, lumbar hyperextending, and it's getting a shearing force, which isn't good. So again, that's why I say you want to feel the glutes slide down, because when I come up, I am driving the hip forward into extension, but I don't want to go past that. So as soon as I hit extension, I'm just thinking about going down. So that instead of this, I'm getting this. And the glute is moving down. So again, here, slide the glute down. Notice how I'm not hyperextending, stopping at a nice straight line. Chest is up, tail is slightly down. So I want you to play with these ideas, you guys. We got, again, our 8 steps. We did our 4 myofascial releases. We did 2 assisted stretches that are designed to start to restore function to the glute. And then this last, that glute bridge, again, getting more function in that. And then that last one, super important that we start to connect it all. But again, as I said earlier, start with the myofascial release. Spend a good amount of time on that before you even start doing any of the other stuff. Maybe starting to add in that first assisted stretch with the little quad stretch with the glute activation, maybe letting that creep its way in at the beginning, but don't try to move to the big stuff first. Take the time to release all that tight tissue. Take the time to really get good glute function. Because again, doing these more advanced exercises isn't going to help you at all if you're not actually getting the right glute activation. So that being said, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. As always, I love sharing this. I love talking to you all. I love hearing back from you. But what I really want you to do is to do it. And I really want you to let me know how it works for you. Because again, this has helped me. It's helped a lot of other people. I want it to help you too. And the only way it's going to help you is if you get out there and you do it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns about any of this stuff, feel free to leave it down there in the comments. I'll get back to you. I'm going to share this with a couple of you guys that said you had your sciatic issues, and please just do it. But again, do it mindfully. Everything at that medium. We're never forcing, but we do want to feel it. So that's all I got for you guys today. 8 steps, 8-step little program to try to get out of sciatic pain. But again, even if you don't have sciatic pain, it'll still help you, and it'll probably help you with a lot of other stuff too. So even if it doesn't fix that particular issue, still give this protocol a look, because it'll help again to even get that lumbar longer, to really help our spine and the rest of our body out too. So that's it. This has been Jonathan. I appreciate you all watching. I'll be coming back to you guys again, hopefully soon, with some more good information. So if you have anything else besides this that you'd like to know about fitness, body, mind, any of that kind of stuff, you can also leave that in the comments and I'll make a video for you too. That being said, you guys take care out there. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.